everybody. Well, welcome back again to another live edition of Hangout with TrekWorks and the Gang. I'm your host, Boyd Crompton. We've got a bunch of modeling people here with us tonight and some electronics guys. We've got a great panel on our show tonight. So I'm going to start off by introducing everybody and having them tell us a little bit about their backgrounds and what they're working on. And so let's get ready to rock and roll, everybody. We're going to start off here with Ralph Tenaglia from Tenor Controls. Welcome again, Ralph.
Hey, Boyd. Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm Ralph. I'm the owner of Tenor Controls here in Massachusetts. We design and make all sorts of lighting control boards for you guys. And I know, Boyd, you always ask, what am I doing? What are you working on next? Can you guys see it?
Hold it up a little higher there, Ralph. You're below your... oh, got the little flying saucer. Cool.
Area 51, is that?
Yep.
Yep.
That's
Cool.
the one.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Yep.
That is cool.
Yep, working on this. It's pretty going to be all self-contained. We'll have some magnetic reed switch to turn it on. You have to stick the magnet to it. It'll keep it on, and then another switch to change, subtle change in the speed as far as the way it pulses and slight rotation. But that's it.
Sweet.
Well, that's really sweet, Ralph. So will that be, you say self-contained, like it'll have a 9-volt battery in it or something like that?
Yep, it'll have a 9-volt battery, and the reason I chose the magnetic reed switch, that way the circuit is not running and won't drain the battery, because it'll just be normally open. And the other thing is we're going to delve into the model kit market for cars.
Awesome, Ralph.
Yep.
That's exciting.
So I'll have some news on that hopefully in the near future. That's pretty much it for now.
Ralph, on your flying saucer board there, what will some of the little effects that it does, what will it do? Will it flash or strobe or pulse?
Well, this one, let's see, let me open it up. It's not complete, it's not glued in, but I don't know if you can see. All right.
So that's like a chaser circuit, right?
Yeah, I decided to use the Jupiter 2 fusion core that we make, okay, for the 18-inch, and the 18-inch layout is actually just fine if you elevate the board. I just have some blocks of wood under there.
Right.
It's elevated to the point where you can see it. You can see it on these windows along the side, and it reflects up top. And to keep the cost down, I could have added some additional LEDs to the top that would, when it kind of rotates and pulses, that you can see it, but there's so much reflection inside that you can see it here. So.
Oh, that's going to be a cool effect, Ralph.
Yeah, it's got the pulsing type effect like we used on the NX.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
And you know, we can speed it up a little, slow it down. I didn't make too much of a drastic change the way it looks, but that way it's one board, and they don't have to do too much other than to connect it up. And I know the cost is going to be a little bit high, especially when the price of this is like $20. As Mike pointed out, but he goes, at least you're doing something with it.
Right. Ralph, you know what? By looking at that model, you're getting dangerously close to actually finishing and building a model there, buddy. You better be careful.
Well, look what I did. I actually primed the inside, Boyd.
Oh, wow. I'm telling you, we're reeling them in slowly but surely, guys.
And I actually diffused the green with some matte clear paint.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just so it diffuses it so you don't see the hot spots so much.
I can tell just by the light shining through it there that it looks nice and diffused.
Yeah, so yeah, you guys are converting me little by little, huh?
We're working you. Okay, Ralph, we'll come back to you a little bit later, buddy.
Sure.
Up next, we've got Steve Layla. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, guys. Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm Steve Layla from Lexington, South Carolina, also known as Stargazer. And I build mainly science fiction models, even though from time to time I do venture off into other genres of models, such as the Munster's Dracula coach,
Oh,
which
loving that,
is
Steve.
nearing
That is really
completion.
cool.
So, and also started working on the lighting diagram for the 1/350th refit. And I've
Oh.
used about a foot-long strip of the double-density blue LEDs and wax paper folded about 4 or 5 times as a diffuser.
Oh, wow. Looks great, Steve. Yeah, it looks really great.
So that's it for me.
Okay, Steve. Glad to have you with us. Up next, we've got Phil Robeson again. Welcome again, Phil.
Hi, guys. Yeah, just a little update on the NX01 from my video. I put my my Nav Lights in the top and bottom saucer last night and did a little lighting test. I've got my LED tape that I've been waiting on, and I'm still waiting on a little bit of fiber optics. So in the next few days, we hope to move forward with some fairly substantial lighting. But there is one thing I wanted to show everybody, which is along the theme of sci-fi, and just close your eyes while I move the webcam. Don't want to make you seasick. And I'll bring up my camera. Okay, what we have here, guys, this is the Black Swan. It's actually the Black Pearl from the Pirates of the Caribbean
wow, would you
movie.
look at that.
Yeah.
Cool. I love a good ship model there. That's beautiful.
Where did you get the Black Swan at?
Okay, so I had to go to New York to visit INS to get my green card renewed, and I jumped off this train having found a little hole-in-the-wall model shop, and I mean a hole in the wall, and this woman had everything. And this is a Russian model from a company called Zvezda, S-V-E-Z-D-A. And it's called the Black Swan because they originally marketed it as the Black Pearl, but Disney had a go at them as far as licensing was concerned. So they changed the name of it to the Black Swan, but in the back, it's all the pearl as per the movie.
Oh, that is cool looking. I love that.
I have been looking for that model for a year.
I've still got to do some more sail work, but when I was building it, I decided if you watch the movie, and I love the part where the pearl slides down the sand into the sea. And if you look at it, it is just matte black and covered in salt. So I'm actually going for that same effect. So she's matte black, gold, and just some pastels to give the effect of the salt water.
That is awesome, Phil. Thanks for sharing that with us.
No
really
problem.
Like that.
Yeah. So that's pretty well it and where I am at the moment.
Okay. Phil, hold up that saucer top again to your NX01 real quick so we can see that paint job on there.
Yeah, sure. I hope that lighting's okay. How's that?
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah, you can really see it now. Looks great.
Wow. Yeah. It is. It really is an impressive color.
Yeah,
and it's available at AutoZone.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, I think that color looks really nice on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to me it's almost perfect for me. I love it. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's beautiful.
Okay, up next, guys, we've got Jerry Hedgecock with us. Take it away, Jerry.
Well, I'm not doing anything in terms of a project for myself tonight. Tonight I'm doing these little things for Boyd. I don't know if the decal's showing up there or not, but let me take the camera and bring it around over here. What I'm doing, you can see how small these are. So what I've done is I've gone in and created decals off of references that I could find and scratch drawing these out for the different parts on these, and I hope I got these right. This is the decal for the tail, and the decal for the top of the body is a two-part. I've already test fitted one half of it on here, and this is the other half that'll lay down on this side. And then the underside part, I'm assuming from looking these over for a little while, Boyd, is this one right here.
Yes.
And that decal for that piece is this little bitty one right here. Um,
Oh my God.
That great.
I just cutting it out right now so I can do a test fitting on these parts. So if all goes well tonight, I'll have this one done, and then I'll have then there's another one over here, and another one that I'll need to create decals for. And when I'm all said and done, Boyd owes me like a new house. but, but other than that, that's what I'm working on tonight for Boyd.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And Jerry, tell our viewers a little bit about your. You've got a modeling service. It's called HDA ModelWorks. And tell our viewers a little bit about some of the services that you're offering.
Well, besides custom decals, I also create decals that I'm selling on my website, and I create custom metal plaques for bases.
Yes.
I also design bases. I've got a base right now that I'm trying to get worked up and priced out for Boyd for his Yamato build. That'll be made out of plexi, and I have also the guy who designed, for those who know Wolf 359 Dave's, the toss base that he's been showing. I designed that as well. Besides that, I also sell SMDs and pre-wired SMDs and other LED products as well. So,
Excellent,
in a nutshell. And I'm going to be building, which I'll brag about, I'm going to be building a De Boer hull refit in Reliant, hopefully starting this fall, which I'm really happy about actually getting because they're my two favorite subjects in the world. So I'll be starting that later this fall and be doing that work, and hopefully Boyd, I believe, will be working on a Reliant De Boer possibly too. So I'm looking forward to sharing ideas with Boyd and working on those together with him.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, Jerry. And Jerry, you might want to mention too, you also have a YouTube channel, right? And you're going to probably be documenting those builds as you go.
Yes, I actually have.
Would really like to see that.
I have two YouTube channels. The old one is under HDA TX, and the new one's under HDA ModelWorks. The old one I'm posting on both locations right now, but I will be moving to just the HDA ModelWorks in the future. So.
Awesome. Well, just to mention, everyone, Jerry has also been doing several model builds and showing them on his YouTube channel, along with some really, really good and valuable building tips and information, guys. So people that are seeing this, you're doing yourselves a great service by stopping by and checking out Jerry's channel. He's got some great stuff on there.
Let me show something. I'll be back. Give me just a second.
Okay.
For those who might not have seen it previously, I'll show the saucer section on the De Boer hull refit, which is this.
Look at the size of that thing, guys.
Holy saucer! It's a fiberglass resin kit. It's 46 inches long when complete.
Wow.
And it is very accurate. It's considered to be the most accurate produced kit compared to the actual studio model. So this is produced by Dennis De Boer of De Boer Hulls and North Star Models. If you interested, look up his website. He currently produces the refit. That's 46 inches, and that's 263 or 261 scale. And he also produces the Reliant, which is about a 36-inch model in the same scale. And they're excellent castings, extremely good quality. Some of the best resin models I've ever seen. So
awesome, Jerry. Thanks for sharing that with us too. That's really cool. I'm really excited to watch you build those up. Okay, up next we've got Dewitt Shaneline. I hope I'm saying that right, Dewitt.
Yeah, right on the nose, Boyd.
Good to have you with us, Dewitt. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on.
Thanks. Well, I'm joining you from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada tonight. I've got lots of kits in progress. I've got like a house full of kits to work on here. So, but I have been working on. I was following your video build and also Jerry's on the Katinga. So I've got
cool.
those, started, and I've got some questions for you two about that. And I guess the other one that I'll be working on soon is I was silly enough to post a YouTube video which was kind of the Howlin' Wolf Cylon Raider from the new Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Got
That sounds exciting.
Somebody wants to see my build of it, so I guess that one's on the bench.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, Dewitt, we'll come back to you in just a little bit here, buddy. Okay, up next we've got David Hames. Welcome again, Dave. Good to see you.
Hey everyone, Roy, thanks for inviting me. My name is David Hames. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. I also go by Trek Builder on YouTube, which I haven't done a YouTube video in a while, but I'm probably due next week to have one up. I'm currently working on the revised or the new edition of the USS Voyager from Germany, or Revell, Germany, I should say. And it's been a slow haul with this, but so far, if you can see, I finally got both nacelles painted, and I just attached both of them to the aft section. Not much really to show. Actually, the nacelles are painted, but the aft section is not. The color I chose for this ship is almost identical to the molded color, but that's the color I chose. It's working out good. I just got to. I'm going to go ahead tonight and come up with try to make a transparent copper for the flux chiller grills, because I decided to paint those copper. And then the Bizarre collectors, I'm going to paint. I did some research online, and instead of I was going to leave them all matte clear like this, but I chose to color them copper and color the Bizarres. It calls it out to be a watermelon pink. So okay. I'm gonna do a little mixture between clear red and a very slight shade of clear blue to try to get a watermelon pink look for them. Outside of that, that's where I'm at, and just so everybody knows, if you haven't seen my channel, when I do a video next week, it's kind of funny, Phil, that you showed that black pearl that you're working on, because it's so ironic to mention that, because next week I have a special treat that I'm going to post on my next video, and it's not all going to be about my Voyager, but I have a little show and tell of my own next week. It should be here next week, but ironically, I wanted it to be a surprise, but I just have to mention, because it's so funny that you showed a black pearl. Ironically, I have a very nice black pearl that's already assembled coming to me from California, and it's unbelievable.
Excellent. Cool.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah,
Very
look,
cool.
look forward to seeing it.
Dave, mention again what you go by on your YouTube channel so people can find you.
Again, it's Trek Builder, so just like Trek Builder all together. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot of videos. My Voyager, I did previously have a YouTube channel called Model Talk for Life, the number 4 Life, but I kind of switched it over to Trek Builder. So some of my first videos showing some of my first models I've built are under Model Talk for Life, but I go by Trek Builder now, and I'm hoping to make a dent on this Voyager kit, hopefully next week.
Well, it's looking really good, Dave.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention too that with the you shouldn't have any problems at all with the copper. When I did my Enterprise D, I just mixed up some regular silver and added a couple shades to get that copper look, and just lightly dusted on over that nacelle with my airbrush, and that blue light will come right through it, no problem, as long as you don't pile it on there really thick.
Well, what I was thinking about doing, and tell me if I should not do this, but what I was going to attempt to do is I got both Tamiya, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to work off of, I got this X22, which is just clear. And I was thinking about just, I was told from the guy at the model shop that if I want to try to make a clear copper, just slightly, just put very little bit of copper in the clear, because you don't want it to go opaque on you. That's what he said. So I mean, I guess what I was going to attempt is just slowly, just like a drop or two at a time, just keep adding copper till it gets copper enough in the clear that I can make it a copper. But I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Well, I didn't have to use any clear in there at all, Dave. I sprayed it on there straight. What maybe I would suggest is if you have a couple of little clear pieces of plastic, even some, something from an old package or something like that that has some clear plastic, mix up your paint and then practice dusting that on there and hold it in front of your lighting source, which would be your nacelle, and just kind of look at it and see how it looks, so it doesn't look cloudy or it doesn't look uniform. You know what I mean? Because when it's fully lit, you won't be able to see the copper at all. It'll just disappear and be all blue. When you turn it back
Well, that's
on,
what I was worried about.
No, it'll work good for you, but you shouldn't have to mix any clear in with that at all.
Really? So you're saying that even with a solid color like copper, I mean, even if you applied a coat or even a coat and a half, you're saying that it'll still bleed right through?
Oh, it'll come right through it. Yep. With you're using an airbrush to put it on with, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. You just spray a light coat because that metallic colors, they'll grab your attention right away as far as looking really solid, versus like a regular white or a red or whatever color. It takes a few coats to get that to look all uniform, or you can just lightly dust that copper on there and it'll look all nice and copper, but you're putting a really thin coat on that. And what I would recommend is that you just get some clear plastic like that and just practice dusting over it and then holding it up to a light source to see if you're not putting it on there too heavily.
Right. Well, what I was going to do is actually from my first nacelle that I wrecked, actually I just yanked out the clear piece that I already painted matte. So I mean, I'm wondering if I use that. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wondering if I should just do half and half. So just like paint half of it and then leave the other half for if I need to adjust a shade or two.
Yep. But I think you'll find that it'll work pretty good for you. And
Okay.
that will come right through that.
Okay. Yeah. If you think I don't need the clear, then I'm not going to bother then.
Yeah. I just, like I said, mixed up some straight silver and a couple other colors to make it turn that copper color, and just lightly airbrushed it right on my Enterprise D, and it worked out perfect.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Next up, we've got my good buddy Chris Whitford. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Hi, Boyd. How are you?
Doing great.
Well, my name is Chris Whitford. I am a contributor with SFMA and owner of the Google Plus community Sci-Fi Fans and Maulers United. I just have one question to ask this panel. Are you ready to take the Iron Mauler Challenge?
I'm ready. I can't wait to get started, Chris.
No.
Well, what it is, Iron Mauler Challenge is to build a model within a week. Build, paint, decal, whatever you have to do.
What do you think, Ralph?
I'll help you guys electronically. I'm out of that.
Well, anyway, this Saturday starts registration. All next week we'll do the registration. And then starting next Saturday, the 14th, got a model to build. And myself, I've either going to be building a Seaview or Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
I always love it when you do that, Chris.
Anyway, what I'm working on for a contest that's coming up, don't know if y'all can see it or not. Small Reliant.
Yep, a nice 12500 Reliant.
That looks beautiful, Chris.
Now, considering it's all decals, then something I've been working on a while, thought I'd bring out to show y'all. The
Battlestar.
Galactica BSG 75.
Nice.
That's cool.
And then the final project, hopefully to be done before next January for a contest, is the 89 Batwing.
That is great. Love every update on that, Chris. Looks like you got the canopy a little bit further along on that one.
Yeah, thanks to Mr. Adam over there with some tips on masking off a canopy, I was able to mask my canopy off and get some primer down. So hopefully later on this week, maybe not next week, try to get some black down on it and start looking good.
All right, Chris. Well, yeah, I just wanted to mention again, guys, Chris has a great community over there at Google+. I always have a hard time remembering how to say it, Chris, so I think it's...
Tell you what, just refer to it as SFFMU.
Okay, SFFMU. So anybody out there viewing, you guys, stop by and check that out. Chris has got a great thing going on over there. And up next here, we've got Adam Corbill. Good evening, Adam. Glad to have you with us again, buddy.
Thank you, Boyd.
What you got going on, Adam? What you working on?
Well, right now we have a 1/72nd scale X-Wing fighter. It's Red 5 from Star Wars. And this is the fine mold sprint. Now, this is just dry fitted, just to show you what you're getting.
Cool.
Oh, isn't that nice?
The wings actuate.
Yeah. Wow.
Now,
Oh, very sweet.
and they close right back up. And, you know, it's just a very simple mechanism. And what we're working on today is working on the landing gear assemblies. One of the things about your fine molds kits, their fit, the quality and detail is really superior to a lot of the other kit manufacturers. And they also offer you options. So these sets of main ending gears and a nose gear are swappable. So if you want this thing in flight mode, you can just put on the gear doors, and they're held on with poly caps. And those of you who are probably familiar with the old Revell transformers from Robotech, use poly caps, and they're just soft rubber grommets they put inside the polystyrene joints and allow the arms and the legs to move. Well, long story short, there's some poly caps to hold this on. So if you want to put this in the landed position, you just simply find a little peg, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fairly firm fit. You can pluck them right out with your fingers, and just put on the closed doors. And what we're doing with the landing gear today is putting on the final color coats after the primer, a coat of satin clear, and a sepia wash. And I don't know if it can come out in this camera or not, but right in here, you can see some of the individual lines just pop out. It's a very, very simple and low-tech technique. So that was what's going on this afternoon. And just a little bit of myself, and I've been modeling for a number of years. And I'm a regular over at the Sci-Fi Model Action. That's all I got.
Okay, Adam, well, great. Tell our viewers a little bit about what you think about the fine molds kits themselves. Are they cast nice? Are the parts come off of the trees nice? Are they how are the instructions on with the model?
Well, I can't say enough nice things about them. If there's any issues with them at all, it's very, very few. I found only maybe 2 parts in this whole thing that had minor flashes. You can easily remove a file. The casting of the parts are quite excellent. They're very sharp. They're very clean. There's no warpage. If there's any warpage at all during the build, it's probably your fault. But seriously, the overall shape of their subject matters, whether it's Star Wars or whatever, it's right. So if you ever look at some of the old kits from Revell and Monogram and all that, some of the shapes and profiles, say like the canopies or the engines, are not correct. They're either too squat or they're too shallow. The guys that actually put the pencil and the paper drawing those things up before they're molded really do their homework. I mean, they literally take calipers to the old studio models and they apply it to the models that you're going to get as the end user. As far as just the parts on the screws, they're very securely held down on the screws. You may have one little part, say like these bays. There's 3 or 4 mounting points, and that's molded into it. And the mounting points, and one can attest, on a lot of these Japanese kits, say if you're going to nip them off here and here, they come out straight and they taper. And it's as little as a 6/4 of an inch of a contact. So you can take, say, like just a small pair of wire clippers and just snap them right off, take a hobby knife, clean it, and you're done. Now, the instructions are, of course, written in Japanese. So you can go online, you can get some translations if you're very fortunate. But if not, the visual diagrams are very, very strong and good. So you can look at them, just follow the number sequences, and each runner is marked A, B, C, D, and on. And if they call for a part, they'll say runner A, part 3, runner B, on and on. And so if you just pay attention to what you're getting off each runner, it's hard to mess up. Now, we'll say that on the X-Wing, it's an exception. There's a lot of duplication. So in other words, all these pods are exactly the same, except you might have like a panel here or there. It's a little different. When you put this together, you can very easily get this S-foil, as they call it, backwards. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to have a landing bay up here and a landing bay up here. Other than that, no big deal.
Minor modification.
Yep, to say the least.
Well, yeah, I'll just add to that a little bit, Adam. As some of you may know, I'm working on this Bandai Battleship Yamato, and I've experienced pretty much the same thing with the instructions. That, of course, they are written in Japanese, but with the superb job that they do with all the detailed pictures and the you basically get to see views of the assemblies from several different angles. And then the way that they organize the parts on the trees is exactly the same as what Adam described, where you've got A, B, C, all the way to Z in the Yamato's case. But I haven't had trouble locating any of the parts or anything like that. So anybody that's out there thinking about building some of the Japanese model kits, don't be discouraged that the instructions might be in Japanese, because these are some very, very fine model kits. They're extremely well designed, and you won't be disappointed at all if you try one of them. They're just awesome model kits, whether it's Bandai or Fine Molds or Tamiya or any of the other ones that are out there. Tamiya tends to be more in line with having their instructions in English more than the other ones, but they're all really, really nice.
I know on the 1/48 scale Fine Mold Star Wars kits, the instructions actually were in English as well as Japanese on those ones.
That's good to know.
And the other thing, too, is even if you get one that's all in Japanese, a lot of times the paint call-outs, you can still figure out by the codes that they use that you can see which ones are the Tamiyas or the, I think the other one is color. There's 2 or 3 Japanese paints, but one starts with H, one starts with, well, the X's for the Tamiyas, and you can still decipher that on the Japanese kits.
Does Hasegawa make paints?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I know
they have some nice military model kits.
I've got a few of their sci-fi-ish ones. They've got a new line called TrekWorks, and I picked up a few of the kits from that just because they look so different. You know, there's I forget what it's called, but it's like a flying Vespa or something like that from one of the anime.
Well, I know from me when I was building the 148 X-Wing, it calls for Mr. Color, Tamiya, and Gouache, or Gunji paints. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that it calls for those three paint colors. Did not see an H in mine, so I'm thinking the only H paint out there is Humbrol.
Well, I thought the H codes were the, I think it's the Gunsanyo or the Gunzi, or I don't know how you say it, but that one. If I had one handy, I could look at the bottle. Oh, let me see. I'll get back to you.
Okay. While we're doing that, guys, I want to welcome, we've got Scott Freeberg who just joined us. Welcome again, Scott. Good to see you.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
What you working on tonight, Scott?
Still in the midst of my Into Darkness enterprise. I've gone ahead and got it with a primer on the outside and inside. So just trying to get light blocking done on it. Filled holes for fiber optics I'm going to use pretty heavily through this model probably. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've pretty much shot all the pieces that need to be primed. I'm going to go back and try to just scratch off some areas so they fit a little bit better because the pins are so small on the alignment on these, especially on the nacelles. Some of the pins got some paint on it and they don't close as cleanly as they did as it was when I first popped it out of the sprues. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Then get working on the lighting. I've got LED strip lighting that I bought, so that's going to go in the saucer and other places and start to get that wired up. So that's where I'm at with that thing at the moment. Last week I showed you guys my Enterprise D that was in pieces. It is happily back in one piece.
All right, we successfully redocked.
Yeah, it's
good job, Scott.
It is now all one piece. So although I kind of wish I had made provisions to put a stand or to put it in a stand. I'm not sure how I'm going to actually mount the thing now, so I don't know if I'll open it back up, maybe build a stand for it, or hang it or something, I don't know yet, but I got to figure out some way to display it.
Very cool, Scott. Well, we're glad to have you on board with us again tonight.
Glad to be here.
Well, I guess it's my turn, guys. I'll just show you I've been working on the Yamato here still, and it's getting a little bit longer. It's about 30 inches long now. I've started to work on some of the superstructure. You can see that I've got the upper tower built there.
First and second bridge.
Yep, there's some lighting in that goes in there. And I've finished working on these little, if I can get you guys a good angle on this here. These are pretty cool. These are the forward launching missile doors. This has a little kind of a mechanism in it with a bunch of springs and stuff. And you can see when you get it all set up that you've got the little missile tips that stick out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And you just trip these little levers here, and the doors all close back up.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
And I'll try to do this for you up here and show you this really quick. But these are the, it has these wings that pop out here on the top for when it's flying in the atmosphere, I guess. They may fly apart on me because I don't have the pins. There's an upper part that holds these little pins in place here. But there's a spring mechanism here on the inside, if you can see there. You have to put all that together. And these wings are segmented. I'll go ahead and hit the button here and see what happens. Hopefully we don't have a parts flying situation here. If I can find the darn button. There it is. All right, here we go, guys. See if this will work.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty neat how they have a whole bunch of moving things on this. Now, this model has, here you can see these are the servos that have been installed. These are actually able to be controlled with a remote control. They're all motorized, so you can turn and elevate all the main gun turrets on it and everything. And up here you can see I've installed the anchor chains. There's real anchors with chains and everything that unreel.
Jeez.
And all that stuff. So there's a lot of electronics in this thing.
Hey Boyd.
Yes, sir.
Can you pan your camera around to the front where those missile doors were?
Uh-huh.
Now, I have a question about this, and this was kind of... Can you get a little closer?
Sure.
Now, if you look at the very front of the red, so the very... right there. Now, one of the questions I was curious about, and this is a good example that I had asked you. Now, you says that being that these kits are so well constructed that now you have not had to do any putty work.
No putty work on this at all.
So how come, now I'm just curious, but how come now, like I see the line from the first section to the second section in the red?
Mm-hmm. Right here?
Yeah, so you don't blend that in?
No, on this model you don't want to do any of that because it's just not gonna, you're gonna lose so much detail if you try to do any of that. It's just got all these fine little details all over it. Okay. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is, on a ship, they often have like raised panel lines like that, where you see there's overlapping joints and things like that. So once all the weathering and everything is done on this, when it's all been sprayed down with some weathering and shading and things like that, that's all going to look like a ship.
Okay, so like the different segments, then you keep the segments as segments then.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And the CG model, Boy, didn't it have those lines? They're hiding those connection points between the segments and the panel lines that the CG model had.
Right. Yeah. It does look exactly like how they show it on the screen. This little guy right up here in front is what they call the wave motion gun. This thing has a huge sort of a laser cannon on the front of it, and it's got built-in audio too. You can see that's the speaker built into the base. And it produces sounds, this wave motion gun, and then back here at the rear you have the
wave motion engine,
which all of this lights up, the top and the bottom. It makes sounds when that activates too, so that's what I've been working on. Get back in place here.
I know nothing about that ship, but my God, I want to build one.
Oh, it's it's just a blast. It's a lot of fun. And just to mention a little bit more, those little planes that Jerry was showing he's making the decals for there, those are the ship carries a squadron of little space fighter ships that protect it or whatever, and there's different groups. What are they called again, Chris? The Tiger...
Cosmo Tigers.
Cosmo Tigers, okay. Yeah, and they come out of there and fend off the attacking... The show is a lot like Battlestar Galactica, but like in a Japanese form.
Yep. I think it came out around the same time too, didn't it? The original one?
Actually, the original animation came out in 1974 in Japan.
Really? That long ago?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Wow.
It came to U.S. under syndication under the name Star Blazers, where the name of the ship was changed from Yamato to Argo.
Uh-huh.
And several of the characters' names changed as well. But I'm a big fan of the original Star Blazers. I remember coming home from school and watching it on the religious channel, of all places. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. There in Japan, it has numerous movies, and they've just restarted with Yamato 2199, which is a retelling of the original show.
I've been watching all those, and let me tell you guys, it's for an animated show, it is out of this world, fantastically well done. It's an awesome show.
What's it called? Yamato what?
Yamato 2199.
There's a whole bunch of kits coming out. I think they're all by Bandai, and there's been about a half a dozen so far.
That's cool. One of the things I was going to mention that I noticed on this kit too is I think they may have updated it. When I've gone back and looked at all of the videos that I could find on YouTube of them building up this model, all these superstructure parts have been lit in red, and this kit includes some green bulbs. And I noticed on the newer versions of Yamato, pretty much anything, they've gone back and changed all that lighting to green. So I think they've updated this thing or something to kind of match that, and changed the lighting in these towers from red to green, because there's green bulbs that are included with it now instead of the red. Anybody that's
now you painted all those parts, right?
I'm sorry?
You painted all the parts.
Oh yeah, everything's been painted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Speaking of paint, I don't know if you can make that out.
Hobby color.
And we got H338, I think is the one on that one.
Uh-huh.
And in the tiny, tiny print there, I don't know if that's coming through. It looks like my camera froze. My screen froze. But,
you're still moving here.
Okay. And can you see there where it says GUNZE?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the H codes on the Japanese instructions.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, guys. Well, I guess it's time we've done all of our introductions and shown what we're working on. I guess it's time for a little bit of a Q&A session here. Anybody have anything they want to ask? Anybody on the panel?
Yes, Boyd, I have a question, since I have a lot of guys here that have done models for a long, long time. David, you have a Voyager, right?
I do, and I bought a board from you for it.
Uh-huh. Well, let me ask you a question, because I have another gentleman, and I spent a lot of time today looking at the original Star Trek Voyager shows.
Yep.
To see how they light the electron, the switching lights that I'm interested in, not the static lights. I've had a hard time finding. They have no nabs. Is that correct, David?
They have strobes, no nabs.
Right.
Now, I take it back. There are nabs, but they don't blink. They're solid.
Right. Let me rephrase that. They don't have any blinking nabs. They're just like full-on static lights, right?
Correct.
All right. I was only able to see in the numerous videos that I looked at, and you guys can chime in if you know a place where I can find it. I only saw one quick strobe, the one that's like a half second on, half second off, on the center of the top saucer near the bridge.
I can tell you where all the strobes are.
Okay. That'd be super.
And this is, if you give me 1 second, and this was something that I kind of got a lot of help from Steve Neal, because Steve Neal is really the only one that I've watched that kind of built it from beginning to end. And if you look at the saucer here, I'll do it in segments because I don't have it all, of course, put together.
Right.
But,
Right.
As far as now, are you just looking for strobes?
I'm just looking for the pulsing lights. I know in this case we're going to call them strobes because there are no pulsing nabs.
Yep, because that's all. The only flashing lights is the strobes, and there's one here on the nose. So dead center on the nose.
Yep.
And everything that I show, well, never mind, forget that. There's one here on the nose. There's one right below the nose on the bottoms.
On the bottom side of the saucer, right?
On the bottom. So there's one here, one here. There is one right on the top of this deck here.
Right, that's the only one I was able to spot.
Yep, so there's this one, and if you actually look at the studio, like some studio photos, or I shouldn't even say the studio model, but if you look at like some close-ups from the show, there's actually another spotlight right below it on this deck here. But there's no way, because there's a spotlight that's supposed to shine down on the registry, but there's absolutely no way to get a spotlight here. So from what I've seen people build is that they only put it on the nose up here on this top deck. Apparently, okay, so that's it as far as the saucer. There's a. Hold on a second here. And then on here, on the hull. So if this were put together,
Right.
There is one supposedly, and I'd have to look, but I know that there is one, I believe, on the spine. And I think as Steve Neal pointed out, there is one that is supposed to be somewhere. I don't know if it's just right below on this part of the spine. I believe he also said that there was a real small one at the very tail end of the spine as well. That's the only one I'm not 100% sure. You might, if you ever correspond with Steve Neal, you might want to ask him. But I believe that there is a strobe on the spine up here somewhere.
You know what? I look at the actual show videos, and then there's schematics, blueprints for these Enterprise ships, all different classes. And I looked at now. I don't know. Should I take this for gospel as the original specs? But I could not see any lights on the spec that are flashing. Any strobe.
On the where? On the spine, you mean?
On the specification.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the weirdest thing. So that's why I was asking you guys, because one gentleman told me that he says, you know, I want you to make me a board with 2 strobes. One, like the refit, the half second on. I mean, excuse me, twice per second. And he goes, I want a strobe, the second strobe, to be that quick flash, but then to be off for about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. Now, I scoured those videos for hours. I could not spot that second strobe that he was talking about.
Well, the only other strobes that I know of is that on the lower half of the engineering hull, there is a strobe right here.
Yep.
And then outside of that, then on the aft section, there is a strobe right here in between the nav lights on the top of the shuttle bay. And then one corresponding right below. So there's, if you can see the lights on this is the bottom of the aft section.
Okay.
And then same as on the top.
I see.
So now on that one, are there? I mean, usually with your strobe lights on a Federation ships, the strobe lights will always flash at the same rate of timing, and then you have your separate circuit, which might be a navigation circuit, which has that just the slow on and off.
Right.
But as far as strobe lights go, they never have them set up where there's like strobe lights are flashing differently.
There's also white running lights too on Federation ships.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now the strobes on this are the only thing that, and all the strobes flash in unison, so they're all going off at the same time. But then the nav lights are all solid. And I'm going by the research that Steve Neal had done, and and I talked to Simon Merckx about it, or emailed him, and he came back, and because I know Simon Merckx built one, but his nav lights were flashing, but he ended up commenting saying that he made a mistake. They're not supposed to flash. They're supposed to be solid. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, David. I'm trying to, most of them, I try in all the lights to be as true to the show as possible. Every now and then, like, you take poetic license with certain effects, but the lights I really try to stay the way it is in the show. So that's why I was asking to see, where these lights are, etc. Because I just got through with the refit, and I had a light. I had what was it? I can't remember if it was a strobe or a nav, Dave, on the top part on the refit, and then near the bridge. And I reviewed the movies and the show stuff. I took it out of the new one I just came out with because it's not there.
Well, Boyd, you just built one.
I was just going to say, Ralph, I had a couple people ask me a question about the Into Darkness Enterprise and the lighting kit that I got from you, and people were asking me where the red and green navigation lights were. And I replied to them that on that new ship there are no red and green navigation lights on the saucer. If you look at the CGI model or any of the videos that I could find of it, you have it correct where the all the lighting on the saucer is all done with just white lights.
Right.
And they flash in unit. You know, they do that unique, really, which you captured perfectly, by the way, Ralph. I really like how that looks. The double flash, that's spot on to the way the ship is supposed to look. So, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that, and Ralph and I have talked about this before. That's one thing that especially Star Trek people or Star Wars modelers, they're very aware and very picky about how the lighting is supposed to look and the timing of the lights and everything on these models. So that just shows the extra effort that Ralph puts in on his stuff to make sure that that's as accurate as possible. Because, yeah, you're definitely going to know when a starship is lit and the lights aren't in the right place or they're not flashing in the right. That's very important.
Yeah, that's why, that's why I'm asking you guys, because you guys build them, but just like this gentleman is, you guys know him, Jack. He's gonna show his ship off, but he wants that second strobe in there. I don't mind, obviously I'll do whatever someone wants, but to roll out a product, I would like to stay consistent to the show.
Right.
And Scratching Jack?
Know where those Scratching Jack.
Yeah. I just started watching some of his videos. They're pretty good.
Well, we can chastise him accordingly and see why he wants to do it.
Yeah, definitely. But, like I was saying, Ralph, as far as I know, now somebody might be able to correct me here, but on all the, at least the Federation ships that I know of, they always have everything that'll be on a strobe circuit. I mean, you were just talking about that, the difference between the strobe and the navigation. Everything on those circuits will always be timed the same. There won't be like one strobe over here doing this and another one doing that. If they're strobes, they're all going to be doing the same thing.
That's
navigation
correct.
lights, they're all going to be doing the same thing.
Right. Just like on some, I think it was at the Enterprise, the D or the E, I changed the timing because there's, based on there's different shows that come out different years for the same show. So I changed the timing. I picked a particular year and said, okay, this is the way they did the Enterprise D, so my nav lights are going to be slightly different time-wise than the refit.
Mm-hmm. Now, the red and the green navigation lights on the Enterprise D, those are always on. They don't blink either.
Oh, they don't?
I must be talking about the strobe then. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the reason they did that is because as humans, we're used to seeing ships and aircraft lit in certain ways, and it makes sense to us.
Yeah.
Because they are
it's navigation purposes, yeah. When you're approaching a ship in the dark, the green is the starboard side, the red is the port.
Exactly.
Like though you're going to have a whole lot of ships in space colliding.
It can happen.
When you're traveling in light speed,
it might get pretty crowded out there in the future, Dave.
Yeah, you got to watch out for the Klingons and the Romulans.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they run a lot of stop signs too, I heard.
Along with planet killers.
Yeah.
Hey,
does anybody else have anything you want to kick around?
Phil, just a quick note, because I want to keep the panel open for everyone. But Phil, I don't think that I caught your if you mentioned your YouTube channel.
It's Serenity Sci-Fi Modeling.
Serenity Sci-Fi Modeling.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so since it's quiet, I have something. This is what you don't do to your Katinga neck.
Oh.
And then when you throw it down in disgust because you just broke it, you sit the wing on top of your hot soldering iron.
Oh.
This is my nicely lit kit. So I just thought I'd grab that out before because...
Well,
Dave, you
That's-
mentioned the Katinga, so I just pulled it out.
I see a battle damaged Katinga in your future there, Phil.
Well, you know what I thought? Because my wife's an artist, I went to her and said, listen, what I want, watch this Star Trek movie with me, just the sequence where the Romulan ship comes out of the black hole. I said, I want you to help me paint that black hole on a canvas, and I'm going to take the front section of the Katinga and cut it here and mount it into the canvas so it looks like it's coming out of that black hole. So,
Nice.
Perfect recovery, Phil. I love it.
either that or it'll be battle damaged.
Never let a kit go to waste.
Oh no! Look, I got so many projects that I can do with kits that haven't worked out. I'm set for life.
Now, Phil, I have to ask: when you broke it and slammed it down in disgust, did you say Hulk smash?
Absolutely. It's exactly what I said.
Yeah, we had one of our guys, Dave, old Wolf 359. He was having some problems with his a Voyager he was working on. He did the Texas two-step on that one too after a little while. So.
Yeah, whenever I do something like that, I always do the Godzilla stomp.
Might as well have a little fun, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about Katinga Next too. Boyd, I watched your build-up of the Katinga, and Jerry, I watched yours as well. And what I wanted to know is, one of you used the brass rod technique, and the other one used the styrene with the screw technique to strengthen it. So I'm wondering if there's an advantage to either one, or is it, 6 of one, half dozen of the other?
Well, I'll answer first, I guess. I think either way is a good way to go, Shane. The brass rod will definitely help with the strength of it a little bit. But I haven't found that the neck is really that unusually weak on that model once you get it all put together. And you've got that big piece that fits on the bottom, that kind of trim piece that goes up on the neck.
Yep.
On the bottom side. The thing will seem really flimsy until you put that on there, but once you get that on there, that really makes it stronger. But one of the nice things about the brass tubing, like Jerry did, is that you can run wires directly through that tubing too. So that makes it a little bit easier to route the wiring through there. But either way, I think it's a good idea to do something in there. And the little screw trick that I do, that's just something that I've done on there for a long time, since having experience with building those things where you barely bump the thing and the whole neck will fall off of it later.
Right. So, and the way you did it was you built it up on the inside, like inside the hull part.
Yeah. I just took a couple of pieces of sheet styrene, and I think it was 040 thick, and glued those together so it was kind of a double wall. And then glued that onto the inside wall, and then once I put the neck up on there, I drilled through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then put a nice screw into that.
Okay. And then speaking of that part of the ship, the curved part that just behind the neck.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys find the detail on that? Because I took some screenshots from the DVD, and to me, it doesn't quite match what I'm seeing on screen.
Well, Jerry's the detail man. I'll let Jerry answer that one.
Well, there's a lot about the 537 scale that does not match. First off, the 537 scale was patterned after the Katinga, before I believe it was Richard Taylor came on board on the effects, and they added a tremendous amount more detail to the model. That's why the bridge dome is so radically different. All the greebles that were added all over the model was added later, after AMT had already taken their information for their patterns. So it's what you get with the AMT kit is not what what you see on screen. And the best correction parts out there that I know of are the ones from JT Graphics, the resin that Jeffrey has, they're excellent in detail, and they can correct other things with the AMT kit.
Yeah, I loaded up on all those, but I think even what do you call that? The bulkhead, for lack of a better term. I think
behind on the secondary hull.
Yeah, the curved part. Right.
Yeah, it's not right now. Somebody told me the other day that Jeffrey now has a new bulkhead for that part, but I haven't seen it. I don't know if that's correct. I haven't been to his website.
Okay, yeah, because I've got a couple of them. So the one that I was working on, I basically scraped it down, except for a couple of the panels that look right near the bottom. But I basically scraped it down, so now I'm at the point of trying to figure out how to build it back up to look better.
With some styrene?
Yeah, or whatever other little parts I could find. I found a little piece of metal out when I was walking my dog the other day. So now I just got to find that in whatever pocket that I had it.
Okay, Boyd, now there's the tip of the week for modelers. Take your dog for a walk, and there's no telling what you'll find that you could use. That's a cool idea.
If you listen to a lot of the interviews from the model makers at the various Hollywood studios, they often went dumpster diving and found all kinds of stuff to put on these models that they were doing in the studio. And I was going to show something real quick here too, Dewitt, since you're talking about the Tinga. This is a must-have right here for that model.
Yeah.
These are, in case you guys don't know, this is from Elliot Brown. I believe his website is called warmplastic.com. This is a beautiful photo etch set for that model, which allows you to do these really nicely fine detailed windows, and you've got painting templates here for your detail around the forward photon torpedo launcher and a whole bunch of other little windows and greelies and things like that all over the model. So it's a beautiful set. And this set is set up to either work with the JT graphics or the straight out of the box kit. You can do either one. So you've actually got enough photo etch parts here to do 2 ships if you're doing one and the other.
There's the other part that comes with it.
That's it. Yep. And then JT Graphics has the photo etched impulse engine grill covers as well, which I have a feeling that DeWitt's about to show us.
Yeah, I've got them here too.
Yeah, and those are beautiful. Really nice.
Probably spent about 3 or 4 times the cost of one of these kits just in the upgrade parts.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. But the model is worth it. It turns out beautiful with all that extra stuff on it.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
So, do you guys get much into the scratch building side of it too?
I don't really. I'll add a few things every once in a while or re-engineer some stuff if I have to, but I'm not really that big of a scratch builder.
And apparently nobody else is either.
Right.
You just kind of do what you got to do.
Yeah, scratch building, I do this other stuff.
I don't know about scratch building, but sometimes when I go out to dinner or something and they give these little plastic spears and stuff and the fruit or whatever, I sit there and start thinking, I could use this for maybe a laser cannon or something like that somewhere.
Now you're thinking.
I loved it when we had, a couple of weeks ago, we had Eric Hawkins in here with us, and he was eating a chocolate sundae, and he said to me, this is an engine.
Yeah, I remember that. That was funny.
And it makes you hungry.
Yeah, to me, I thought, I'm hungry.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Question. That Reliant you're building?
Yes.
Now, you said that, did you paint any parts, or is that all?
Yes, I have. Parts that are painted are the sensor pallets behind the main bridge, the super phasers, And the parts above the, I really don't know what those parts are, but they're dark blue here.
Oh, can you hold it up more? Oh, there. Okay, yeah, where those sensors, I think those are torpedo launchers or something.
Nope, torpedo launchers are only for the, what is this? Torpedo launchers for the Reliant are only here.
Oh.
On the roll bar.
On the roll bar, yeah.
Those phasers?
Fire right over the
Those
top
are
of
not
their heads.
phasers. The Reliance phasers are on the roll bar on the saucer.
Yeah.
Because they these are called mega phasers or super phasers for some reason.
Okay. But you painted the blue inside the canals there.
Yeah.
Or the channels. Okay.
And that's from this particular kit, right?
Right.
Now, you said you painted, I'm sorry, can you hold it up again, Chris? Which one? I didn't see where you pointed out that you painted.
Okay.
Outside of that.
Okay. Underneath, I painted this because it's molded in white. I painted that into a lightish, light gray, but it didn't turn out so light.
Okay.
We'll have to go back over it. On top, the sensor palettes.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I started to paint the shuttle bays, but when I put the decals on, they don't show up, so I had to strip the paint out of there.
So you could easily just use the decals then?
Yeah.
So now, was there Aztec decals that came with that?
Oh yeah. This entire ship is 98% Aztec decals.
Now that's the Cadet series, right?
Yeah, it is the Cadet series, yes.
Okay. That looks fun just for a small kit to do.
Oh, they are fun. I have no complaints. As a matter of fact, I kind of messed up on this one when I was working on the front of the warp. Basically what happened is I let too much of my thin black scrim down. So I didn't think I could recover it, but I found out that I actually could. So, but just in case, I bought another motion picture of a Cadet Series pack today. And I'm probably going to use that to make my Wrath of Khan, or AKA Kobayashi Maru, battle scene.
Ah. Maybe someone else can contest to this, but so far, being that I built the Reliant, and I built the 350 refit, I'd have to say that the biggest pain in the butt to paint is the black that goes in between the fronts of the nacelles. You got those, the white T thing that's right, I think it's the front of the nacelle, and then you got the little black stripes that go inside the...
The SARD scoops. Yeah.
SARD ram scoops.
Those things are a pain to paint.
There are a few things on there that are pain. Those little... Jerry knows what they're called. I never remember. What are they called, Jerry? On the sides?
Atomic grills?
Yeah, on the sides
grills?
of the nacelles. Those are kind of hard to paint, too, because you've got that curve, and then you've got that lighter shade of blue that needs to go in there right next to that copper color. It's pretty hard to get in there.
The duck.
Yeah, I didn't paint mine.
I painted guys.
I didn't paint the brass.
Yeah, and that's why mine is a practice model.
Yeah.
I was going to say, since you guys are talking about the 2500 scale Cadet series, you've heard me mention before. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Classic Plastic 101. If you guys have a look at his latest work of art over there, he's done a beautiful little shadow box display of the Battle of the Matara Nebula with the 2500 scale Reliant and the 2500 scale refit. He's done the battle damage on them, but he created the Matara Nebula in 3D, where he actually has a backdrop of the nebula, and just like Chris always does, he's really imaginative. He took some material that's similar to cotton, but it's not actually cotton. It's
Polyfill.
Like polyfill. It's like where they put in pillows and stuff like that. And he kind of stretched it all out and made it look all kind of wispy. And then he airbrushed it, the colors of the nebula, so you get like this 3D cloud effect. And he has the little ships mounted in there, and it turned out just absolutely phenomenal.
Cool.
And he talks about he spent less than $10 on the whole shadow box and everything that he put into it.
That's Chris.
Talks about some really simple ways to do all that. So
He always comes up with amazing solutions, and he pays hardly nothing for it.
that's right.
Look,
Yeah,
I mean, look like the backdrop he did for the Cylon.
yeah,
On that diorama he made. I think it was
That
out
was
of tinfoil or
I
something.
love
But
that.
it just looked absolutely gorgeous.
like a Cylon had just ripped through a steel wall
Yeah.
and was standing there, and it was all made out of cardboard, but a little bit of creative painting and everything. It looked phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked his channel out, I highly recommend it. He shows lots of different painting techniques, and he's well versed about what all the different paints do and how they work together, and a lot of hand painting techniques for doing textures and things like that. He's very good at it.
Do you know? Does anybody know? And I know there's a gazillion channels that I could just check out on YouTube, but I'm very. I'll be the first to admit I'm very afraid to dabble into weathering because I know nothing about weathering. I've tried a couple times doing dry brushing, which I'm guessing you have to dry brush a lot to do weathering.
Yes.
And I'm not really catching the understanding on how to weather or to dry brush. I get the concept on how to dry brush, but I'm just trying to think of, is there a good reference place for videos for either or?
The one I just mentioned, Dave.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, he does all that and more. I mean, it explains how you get some of those different effects and the proper colors to use. You know, a lot of people think that when you're doing like weathering, where you're doing like battle damage and that kind of stuff, that people tend to always want to use like black colors or grays. When in reality, you want to do a lot of your weathering and shading and things like that. You want to use different types of browns and things that actually look a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Give it a more of a sense of scale. And he goes into all that over there, all kinds of different techniques, from weathering to one he's got where it's a detail painting when he built the female predator figure, which it just turned out. It's just out of this world amazing. And the different techniques he shows on how to do that type of painting, which you can apply to a lot of other types of modeling. It's well worth checking out his channel.
Well, he also built that ID4 ship.
Oh yeah,
and reproduced that funky painting
that modeled kind of
model had.
Yeah, that modeled kind of pattern on the top.
And
Chris
did a
is probably one of my
wonderful job.
very favorite YouTube channels that's out there. He's always got something, and every build that he does, he adds his own sort of twist on it. And it's the last project that he did before this little 2500 Cadet Series ships was the Munster's Living Room, believe it or not. And you'd think, oh, well, Munster's Living Room, but just watch the video build up and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, is this the guy that did the wood on the fireplace?
That's the one.
Yes.
Oh, I watched that video where he was explaining how he weathered the wood grain on that fireplace, and I was just blown away.
Oh, yeah. Well, he does cars, he does spaceships, he does airplanes. He does it all over there, so
Oh, okay.
highly informative.
My favorite so far has been the Bandit Trans Am.
Yeah, that was nice, too. But he always puts his own little kind of twist onto things. And very amazing.
It just
Great
looks,
imagination.
it looks hard.
Yeah. Yeah, weathering takes some practice. You know, it's very easy to overdo weathering, and that can ruin a model really quick if you overdo it. And I tend to, when I do my weathering, I tend to do a little bit and walk away and come back the next day and look at it and say, okay, do you feel like, you know, it's sort of like if you're writing an important letter to somebody, you think, well, that covers everything, but if you go back and read what you sent to somebody, like maybe the next day, you go, oh man, I wish I would have added that, or maybe not put that in there or whatever, and you get a new perspective on it. That's how I kind of recommend to do weathering. Do a little bit at a time and then come back with a new frame of mind, look at it, and see if you still think you were going in the right direction or not. Maybe you've already got enough on there, because it's really easy to overdo it.
If I might add too, is that when you're doing weathering, is do it in a layered technique. Start out with stuff that's going to stand out to you the most. For example, if you have like any kind of model that's got a lot of fine detail in it, address that first. You can do that with washes, or you can do it with an airbrush if you want to. And the next step is use a different color. Go a little bit broader, and your last ones is going to cover the biggest amount of area. And at that point, probably use some pastels or an airbrush. And make it as subtle as you can. And like you said, Boyd says, just walk away from it. And it's really, there's nothing to it. If you just do it just gently, I think you'll be very satisfied.
Yeah, and that's another whole topic that I'm not familiar with is washes. I heard the term, but
easy. What you do is that, let's just say, I don't know what your favorite paints are, if they're acrylics or enamels. Everybody's got a preference. But I primarily work in acrylics. And what I do, well, for example, like I was showing you guys for the X-Wing, I get the particular wash I want. In this case, it's the sepia, or sepia. And you thin it down with the recommended thinner first. You get it down to the consistency of 2% milk. Then I take water and I thin it down even further yet. And that's about the consistency of India ink or even thinner. You take a fine brush, and this is just for small areas, mind you. And you're just going to load up your brush a little bit and just kind of test it on a paper towel, see what your color saturation is. So if it looks like watercolor or something like that, and you start applying it to the model, just let it kind of seep up, seep out. If you need to get a bigger brush, you can make it go further. And once you let it settle down, you can take something and blot it a little bit, like with a cotton swab. And if that's not enough, you go another layer and another layer. For panel lines, equally as simple. You take the same kind of mixture. It can be the sepia or rust or green or whatever you want. And some of your panel lines are deep enough where it has what they call a capillary action. So you get a very, very fine brush, probably like around a double-aught, sometimes a 20-aught. And you can get it at your art store. Roll up the brush and start where the seam line starts, and it'll just run all by itself as a surface. And if it looks like it's a little too much, don't worry about it. Just wipe off the excess and start. And you'll be amazed how quickly they make things defined. It gives you the illusion like there's a shadow in there when there really isn't. But that's just a couple of things.
That technique right there, Adam, I've heard it referred to as what they call a pin wash, where I guess they're calling it a pin because the tip of the brush is as fine as almost a pin, a really fine tip brush. I see a lot of the military aircraft modeler guys use that technique where they're, like he says, dipping it in the paint and just touching it on an area and letting it, and sort of maybe tipping the model a little bit or whatever, and letting it run down into like where all the panels are and the rivets and if you have a model airplane, for example, that the control surfaces are not really separated, they're molded into the, you bring out all those lines of separation and all that detail and everything. So it does work really good. And thin down like that, you can always wipe off the excess if you go too much.
And the other thing is that with acrylic lacquers that are typically water-based, you don't have to seal them with the varnish. As a matter of fact, I do all my washes after everything's been varnished. And what happens is that with the solvents that are present in acrylic lacquers, like a Tamiya, for example, they will take off a layer of paint if you're not careful. So what I go ahead and do is I just put, say, like a satin finish, or in this case, like it's a military model, it will be a flat finish. And that'll protect your layers of paint below, and it doesn't make that blotch up. And then if you want to seal them, you can. You don't have to. With the pastels, you do, because it's just a chalk is all it is. And pastels I don't use very much. I don't care for them, but the washes are good, and if you got an airbrush and know how to use it, they're fabulous for doing weather, and that's where you want to do your weather on much larger areas. And you can experiment with distance and pressure and viscosity of the paint and the chroma or the color. And play with it. You'll find some stuff on your own.
Adam, it wasn't you who did the Cylon Raider, was it?
No, I didn't build that one yet.
Yeah, okay. It was a good example of using pastels, shading Cylon Raider. It was very good. I use Artis oil color mixed with some odorless spirits because it takes forever to dry.
Yes,
and leaves you a lot of leeway to clean up. And if you've got a nice coating of Future on before you use it, you can't really do any damage, and it's easy to back off from a mistake.
That's true.
One of the things,
Adam, I have a question about the those working with those artist chalks. Is there any issue with once you put those, say you dust those on sort of like a makeup artist does on like a guy's face or something like that, right? You kind of blot that stuff on there, however you apply it. If you were to apply like a clear top coat on that, whether it's satin or dull or anything, does that getting that chalk powder wet, does it change the way it looks, or does it?
Yeah, it does. It does deepen. It won't disperse them as long as you lay your coats down very, very light. But it's just like when I was doing a lot of sketching with, say, the low salt graphite pencils, and also a number of years ago, I used to work pastels as a sketch artist. And one of the things that I learned about that was that if you start applying your clear coats down too heavy, it'll make them even darker. So I guess the answer to your question is yeah, it does change them a bit, but just make your coats very, very light, and I don't know, maybe 2-3 coats at the most.
Okay.
Well, one of the things when I was working on my 48 X-Wing with the chalks and all that is you've got to remember to use, number one, a really stiff brush.
Yes.
That's why I took this epoxy brush and chopped down the bristles. And you can do the chalk several different ways. You can do it straight from the crayon, or you can build you a pile up on, well, that's what I use, an old CD case that was screwed up. Build it up and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And the chalks will really make good streaking.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at weathering is, number one, first thing I will always do is a pen wash. Number two, I will go to do the broader surfaces with everything streaking back, because as you're moving through space or atmosphere or everything like that, it's going to doesn't matter what, your surfaces are still going to be streaking towards the back of the craft.
Uh-huh.
And number three, the last thing you'll do is the weathering with the chalks and the pastels, because that basically stimulates your burns, your earth, things of that nature. So it's always a three-step process to me.
All right. There's that layering again.
There's a channel out on YouTube called The Painting Clinic, and he had some good videos on using washes, highlights, and some other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've checked him out a couple of times.
Dr. Faust's The Painting Clinic, yeah.
Yes.
He's another poor soul that had another bad issue with those Aztec dummy masks, and I think twice on a Reliant that he was trying to build, and it peeled up his paint too, so.
But for your washes, the best thing, if you're going to use, when you're doing your washes, always remember, washes bring out your pen lines. And that's the best thing I can tell you for that.
Yep. Well, that's some great painting tips tonight. All kinds of good stuff floating around tonight, guys.
If you want to see an example of an extreme pen wash, of course, this is an imitator cartoon. Let me show you something. This little guy here. I know some of you are really familiar with these. Like on his wings. There. That's all pen wash.
Yeah, you can see the detail on that.
Mm-hmm. And that's just black.
Mm-hmm. That really brought that to life.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yeah, talking about the pin wash, that's what I plan on doing on a lot of this Yamato, and then you know, with ships, you get sort of a I'm not going to go too extreme on it, but the client that I'm building this for, he mentioned that he wants a sort of a look on the upper decks. You know, if you're familiar with the show, this thing, the Yamato, is basically laying on the bottom of the ocean. And what's happened in the future is these aliens have attacked or whatever, and there's all the Earth's oceans have dried up. So you're looking at, you know, it looks like a desert, but it's actually what used to be the bottom of the ocean. And there's this old hulk of a ship sitting there, half buried in the mud. And what they did is they were actually, to fool the aliens, they were working on the ship. They built an underground facility underneath it. And they were working on the ship. And when they finally activate it, it straightens itself up and it launches and comes up out of the mud. He wants to have a little bit of the, not overly done, but just enough where it's noticeable at the beginning shot there, where up on the upper decks and everything, there's a little bit of that, some of those earth colors on there, like it just came up out of the dirt. So that's where I'm going to be using some of those pastels and those chalks to give it sort of that dusty, but without over, you don't want to overdo it. Like I said, that's all going to have to be really, really subtle on that. And then on the lower hull, with ships, there's sort of you'll see variances in the colors of the panels, like depending on how the water's been flowing over them or whatever, that, maybe a leading edge on one panel might be worn down a little bit, and the one behind it looks almost pristine, it kind of varies. So that's kind of the look I'm going to be going for on that.
You would think that they'd want some rust.
Not really any rust.
No?
There's not much rust on the ship when they show it in the various, because what's been done actually is the ship isn't really made out of metal anymore. It's some other type of material that's much more conducive for going in space. But you gotta kind of believe a little bit.
Yeah. I'm buying into it.
Yeah, it's not transparent aluminum.
No.
Dave, you was asking about pin washers. Those are an extreme example of pin wash.
Oh, hold on, I gotta switch.
Make all those lines on his costume there.
Oh wait.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
yes.
That looks great.
But now, do you just trace the panel lines, or do you like brush it?
What it is you just you just take a small brush and you drop it, and it capillates. Like
It flows into the lines.
Flows
now,
into it.
Now, when it flows, though, wouldn't some areas be a little heavier than others?
Yeah, but that's why you dab off.
Oh, okay.
You might have to redo it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that looked nice.
Yeah. Well, we've all seen some really interesting stuff tonight. I especially enjoyed Phil's Black Pearl there. That was really cool.
That is.
And,
how much did you pay for that bad boy? Because I'm going to have to give me one.
Well, she's in New York City, but she said she'd ship anything for me. It was I paid $175 for it.
Okay, out of my range right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phil, do they have an online website by any chance, do you think?
No, she doesn't. But I've got her phone number somewhere. She was a funny little old thing, I got to tell you. Her son.
We're not trying to steal from your honey hole there.
Yeah. I understand. No, I asked her if she had a website. She said no. All I had to do was call her, and she would ship for me. But I don't know. I did a search for it not long after I bought it, and I think I found it. Somebody was carrying it. Somebody else, but yeah, let me dig up her details, and yeah, you can give her a call.
Now that's a model. That's a kit.
Oh yeah, it's a plastic kit, the same as all the others, except it's Russian, and this company seems to specialize in ships, sailing ships. I think they do a few planes, but it is a beautifully molded kit. I would put it somewhere between Revell and fine molds as far as quality is concerned.
How long have you been building that?
I started that one in November, December last year.
From scratch?
Yeah, yeah. The only reason I haven't finished it is I'm just up to rigging the sails, and it's a pain in the neck. It is so tedious tying knots in, tiny cotton. So I just kind of put it aside. Yeah.
I couldn't have
That's going to be beautiful, Phil.
Thank you. Well, I guess the first time I came on the Hangout, I pointed the camera at the Victory, and I'll put it at it again. If I can
let's see it.
You see it over there? That's actually made of wood. That's an Italian kit. She's 48 inches long and 3 feet high. I've been building that. I've been building that for 8 years.
Yeah.
Slow and steady.
Those detailed ship models can do that to you.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm up to shaping the spars by hand from pieces of dowel, and it gets long in the tooth after a while. So I took a break from it.
That's really nice. Yeah, I had been. A couple of us had been talking about some kind of hard to find models, and one of the model kits that I've had my eye on, I had thought about for a while, is the Cygnus from. If you guys remember that old movie, The Black Hole by Walt Disney. They had that giant ship on there that they found, parked next to the black hole. And MPC actually made a model kit of that, and they're really hard to find, and they're usually quite expensive. And I found a couple of them a few weeks ago, and I almost bought one of them, even though it was kind of expensive, because I'd really love to build one of those and light it and everything like it looked in the movie. But when I did a little bit of research on the model kit itself by MPC, apparently there's an entire section of it that's missing. And what a lot of these people are doing is, in order to get it more correct, is they're buying two kits and they're splicing them together to get the correct length. And I mean, these kits usually sell for around $150, $200, sometimes $250 because they're kind of rare.
Wow.
So I started thinking about it. I was like, well, you have $500 and a couple of models that that were probably about $10 when they came out.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, it's all molded in like a silver metallic. So in order to light it, you're going to have to go in there and physically cut out each one of those panels and make the, it had these little kind of X-shaped girders all over it. The whole thing looked like a giant, almost like a greenhouse in space with lights all over the thing. So that'd be a ton of work. But I've also wanted that little Maximilian robot that they had in the movie, that red guy with the, he had the spinning. And I did wind up getting one of those because those aren't super expensive, and he's fairly accurate too. So maybe building one of those in the next couple of months. I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah.
Guys, I hate to be rude, but I need to go ahead and drop off. It was fun talking to everybody, and I hope to do it again.
Bet.
Okay, Steve.
Take care.
Good to have you, buddy. Dragula's looking great.
Take care, buddy. Take care, Steve.
Thanks. See y'all later.
Take care.
So I have a question, and I know, Boyd, you, from all the models I've seen you build, let me just give you an example here of where I'm. So when I get to this point, and this is a good point to ask this question. So on this piece that I've already showed tonight, what I'm wondering is that now I've already painted both nacelles. They're complete, and I'm going to paint the aft section, shuttle bay, this area next. what I am wondering, because I think traditionally when I watch your builds, when you get to this point, when you already attach these 3 sections, you already have this painted. If I'm correct in how you do your segments, but so my question is, and the reason why I didn't is because this is what I'm not really getting, is that, so hypothetically, say I already painted all 3 of these pieces. Well, the problem is that with this model, you know, you got, well, with all these parts, you got 2 halves. So you got the top half of the bridge or the shuttle bay, you got the second half. So if I were to go ahead and say before I glued these 2 and sandwiched, you know, the hinges, because these are hinged, before I added those, say I just painted the shuttle bay in the aft section here, the top half and the bottom half. Now I primered it, I put my main color on, and say now I go ahead and put this together. Well, what I don't understand is that, and I see this a lot with most people who do builds like this or with any models, is that they'll paint all the pieces first, and then they'll start gluing them together and then going back and touching it up. Well, I guess that's what I don't really understand, is that to me, and you know, just from a glance, you know, as a bystander looking at this, I would think that it would be extra work if you paint it first, because then you have to go back, you have to sand, you have to do any gap filling or you know, putty work. But now you're already sanding off the primer, you're sanding off your primary color, and then now you got to go back and try to blend it all in to match. Now, to me, that seems like a lot of work. Is that not the case?
Well, I mean, it's, for me, I'll take different approaches to the particular thing that I'm working on. And if it's something that has a lot of windows on it, I don't like masking windows. And I think that's been kind of evident in a lot of my builds that you've seen, because I just think that when you're masking a lot of the windows, unless you're really good at it and you're going to spend a lot of time on it, a lot of the builds that I see where somebody has gone back and masked all the windows, you can tell, or they get around the edges of the windows. It doesn't look really clean. They get a little bit of paint bleeding in there, or they get jagged edges where the tape overlapped the window too much, and you didn't get paint like right up to the edge of the window, things like that. So what I'll tend to do is paint all my parts, do all my I often talk about using the canopy glue to do the windows, but in a lot of cases I will go ahead and put the plastic inserts in the windows and all that. And so when I don't want to get overspray on those, I'll just mask off the general area where the windows are. And there's a little trick that I've shown on a few of the videos where it's an old painter's trick, what they call back taping, where you take the edge of your tape and you roll it up so it doesn't make a sharp bend, and you allow the tape to, like, roll up and make a curve, and so you don't have a hard line where when you're going to spray and you're going to do your blend, it's not going to leave a hard line right there.
Crease.
When you pull the tape off, you're going to see a line where you stop with your spray. The curve of the tape sort of deflects the air as it's flowing out of your brush, your airbrush, or your gun, or whatever you're using, and it doesn't allow it to pile up like that. And of course, when you're painting, you try to avoid like ever pointing it straight at that either. You kind of paint away from that. And so then masking off all those windows and everything, and then getting up to what you were talking about, you have everything painted, and you wind up with just those little seams, right? So then I'll tape right up to the edge of those seams, and then roll the tape back like that, and do all my, when I'm doing my putty work and my cleaning up of the seams and sanding, I'll put the tape like right up next to it, tape down normally, like you don't have to worry about rolling the tape back on a case like that, because you don't want your sanding to start spreading, you know what I mean, and start sanding into areas that don't need to be sanded. Just concentrating on the seam or whatever you're trying to correct and make it look good. Once you've done that, pull that tape off. then do your back taping when you're going to do your top coating, and keeping all the other windows and everything else masked off. Instead of masking those individual tiny windows, one at a time. And that's mainly my reason for doing it. Now, when you say extra work, going back and resanding that, I'll always save a batch of, whenever I use any paint, I always make sure I have more than enough paint to paint the model and to go back and do my touching up, so that when I do spray it on there, it's going to match perfect. And then
right,
it might be a little bit more work.
I guess what I
to redo. I can see what you're saying. Where you're saying you're redoing the original paintwork on the edges that you already had done, but it's less work to me to do that than it is to do all those individual window masks. You see what I mean? Where
okay, right, but set aside windows though. I mean, for example, I mean, like this piece here. And this is the only thing I have to show, but in this particular case, when you're working with a section, say that's not windows, wouldn't you think it would be easier to just build this entire thing up, sand and do all your sanding and puttying, and then go back through and paint the entire thing assembled? Or no?
In my case, no. I think that it's easier to handle the parts. For instance, I'll paint a lot of my parts while they're still on the screws, because you're going to have the seams and everything around the edges where the little nubs or where the screws are left over. When you paint everything on a screw, in a lot of cases, like I've been noticing on these Bondi kits, for example, that the way that they're molded, you can paint everything on the screw, and when you clip all the parts off, they've got them sort of attached on the back side of the part, so that when you clip that off, there's not a little piece of your paint that's missing. On a lot of the American kits, though, that's not the case. So, like when you paint everything on a screw, clip that part off of there, there's a little spot on there that's going to be bare that you're going to have to touch up. But that's usually going to be on a seam line or something anyway that you're going to have to go, and the way I do it, you're going to have to go back and repaint it anyway.
But now when you...
guys, I'm going to say goodnight.
Okay, Jerry.
So I'll talk to everyone later, and thanks everyone, and catch up with you later, maybe on TS Boyd, so we can talk about some of the Yamato issues.
Okay.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Glad to have you on tonight, Jerry.
Good night.
See you, Jerry.
But getting back to that, to me it's easier to handle those parts and everything, and make sure I get paint all over them nice and uniform and even in all the little nooks and crannies before it's assembled. After it's assembled, there can be little curves or little areas you have a hard time getting in, and then you're handling the model, you're moving it around a lot, you got a chance of knocking it apart, or, I mean, it's just my own preference. I mean, I've seen people that completely build a model and then mask every little thing off and then paint it like it's a car in a body shop or whatever, but I've just found for me that painting all the parts individually first is like, I'm able to see and determine more that I've got everything painted evenly, and all I have to work on is the little seams at the end. Anyway,
right, and I guess I've done that same method ever since I started modeling, but this is the first time that I've had to pay attention to, I am correcting seam work, and I guess when you're touching up seam work after you put two halves together, and say when you touch that up and you do sanding, I mean, are you sanding, and when you do your sanding and puttying after you've painted everything, are you then, I guess what I'm trying to say is that then are you going back and repeating all the steps over, like primering, then going through all your paints to your primary color, or do you not, when you're doing touch-up work like seams, do you not bother with primer, then you just go to your main color, or?
No, well, I mean, it'll depend if I have to use primer or something, Dave. If it's in an area where there was something that was light blocked, like if there's, say, if it's like on the edge of a saucer on one of these Enterprise models where there's a bunch of lights that are really close by on that, you're going to have to reprime it, because otherwise you're going to have a bright spot in there that the light's going to leak through. But if not, I mean, I'll just usually dust some paint right over it, even if it's been sanded down to bare plastic.
Oh, you'll just use your primary color and that's it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know, though.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just take each individual case as it dictates. You know, like I said, if there's light there that's going to be really bright, that you're going to have you possibly have a light leak or a spot, not really a light leak, but just where it's plastic and you've sanded it down to bare plastic and you know there's going to be light kind of coming through it. And yeah, you want to go ahead and primer that so you don't have to pile on a bunch of paint to try to get it to go away.
Okay,
That's
good.
one of the first things I'll do when I'm working with lighted models is after I've done all my seam work and before I go to put any paint back on it or primer or whatever, I'll turn all the lights down in here and I'll take a picture of it, a couple pictures of it, and see where all the light leaks and all the weak spots in the paint are. So you can remember that, and then when I'm working on it in the daylight, I can reference that picture and go, okay, this spot here and here and here needed to be touched up, and I'll just keep turning the light back off and on. I think a couple of the videos I've seen Steve Neal do the same thing, where he's touching up some of the areas and he's turning the light off and on to see where the light leaks are coming through and things like that. So you don't pile on a whole bunch of paint,
Right. No, thanks. That's good to know. I've been meaning to ask you that for a long time, but it's.
Oh, it's one that I get asked a lot because, they ask me all the time why I like to paint everything and then put it together. It's kind of like a lot of people don't know when they build cars, they don't paint them at the very end after the car's already been put together. The panels and everything are all painted now, and they've got little things, like little pieces of styrofoam on them and little coverings here and there that keep things from getting scratched and chipped. But that's how there's paint, like inside the door jambs, and everything is painted perfectly on like say a vehicle, because they paint all those parts first and then put it all together.
Right.
Otherwise, it'd be really hard to get in there and paint all that stuff.
Well, I think that's the I see most people paint and assemble in their respective sections first. I think that's more commonplace than building something entirely and then going back and then painting it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know Adam's one of the guys that doesn't mind masking windows. when he did his Enterprise D, I believe he said he masked those windows like 3 times.
What?
That's the clear Enterprise. And, man, it looks huge in that picture.
Yeah, it does look huge.
But
go ahead, Adam.
All these little windows right here, okay, now on the molded kit, the dimples are wrong. So you'll have to fill a lot of the stuff in. You're going to have to make individual masks of each one of these guys. Well, just a little backstory. I wanted the first season version that came out 1987. And there's virtually no race detail on it at all. So the original model was like 7 foot long or something like that. It was made of fiberglass and resin. And so that's the look I wanted. So I took this kit, I sanded every bit of the race detail off. And I thought, oh, I'll be clever. I'll just mask them once, paint, and pluck them out. There's one problem with that. The windows are highly recessed. So if you put your paint up, the windows disappear. So every time I lay the color down, wet sand it, pluck them off 3 times, and there's about 1,400 windows on this thing.
1,400.
1,400. Pure insanity. They look nice, but the scratching method is way easier.
Does Lou over at Aztec Dummy, does he make window masks for that clear kit?
Not that I know of.
No. Your better bet is, if you're going to do what I did, be prepared to spend about a few days and get you some blue tape. Your widths are about 1/64 wide, and they can vary anywhere from 3/32 to 5/16 of an inch long. And you make hundreds and hundreds of them, and just pluck them off one by one, and just keep laying them in the little canals.
Yeah, I'd rather.
That is dedication.
Scraping.
I think when I get to that kit some year, I'll be scraping them.
Yeah, they'll look good, and you only do it one time.
Well, be aware, everybody out there too, that Round 2 has discontinued that model.
What?
Oh wow!
If you want one, you better grab them up.
Why
They
did they do that?
stopped making it. Nobody knows. I mean, I thought they'd probably be a pretty good seller, but maybe they haven't been selling very well or something. But maybe our whole hope here that they were going to repop a bunch of these models in clear is all going down the drain. Let's hope not. But,
well, honestly, my opinion on Round 2 is getting less and less just because of I'm not very impressed with their lineup of kits.
well, you know, one of the things to keep in mind is they recently bought up MPC and who else, Chris, did they buy up? They bought a couple of Lindbergh. And so kind of what's on their priority right now, it seems like, is they are repopping a bunch of these old kits that haven't been around in a while. That Barnabas Vampire van that you saw me build was an example of that.
Okay.
And some of that stuff might be kind of cool, but I mean, they might also repop the Charlie's Angels action band. You know what I mean?
Oh, great!
So the Trek stuff is kind of falling by the wayside. You know, when I know these little 2500 scale kits are popular, but when I started seeing a lot of that, I got kind of worried that that's sort of what they're going to lean towards. You know, the younger kind of kids market and things. Not that those models are just for kids, but you know, I mean, things they can sell a bunch of them because they're really cheap, and that we might not see any 350 scale kits in the future. And I'm kind of worried about that. And I hope it doesn't go that direction. I hope we still get some cool stuff in there once in a while. I mean, they moved back the release date on the Galileo, which I was really looking forward to that one. The 1000 Reliant has been pushed back, and to me, I mean, if you're going to have the Star Trek license, you should be active making Star Trek stuff. And if I was the owner of the Star Trek license, or whoever, I guess it's CBS now, I'd be saying, hey, if I'm going to give you the license and I'm going to make you exclusive, I want you to be pushing stuff. I don't want you to be, or I'll give it to somebody that will push the stuff. You know, for example, I wouldn't mind seeing Mobius get the Star Trek license. I think Mobius would do a fantastic job with Star Trek stuff, but
I just don't understand why Round 2. I mean, why? You know, for example, I guess one thing that frustrated me is that they reissued a 350 NX-01. Well, we already have a 350 NX-01, and the last time I checked, I mean, you can still, granted they're not cheap, but I mean, they're still available on eBay.
Yeah.
So why would they reissue a 350 NX-01 versus making a 350 TNG Romulan Bird of Prey or a 350 Reliant or
money?
Yeah.
Mold's already made. It's selling. Obviously, they can repackage it, and that's why you're going to see more of a push, Dave, on these. They've already got the molds for the old MPC stuff that they already released earlier. You're going to see, for example, Space 1999, the old Eagle 1 model kit that for a lot of us that grew up in the 70s was very popular. That kit hasn't been around for ages, and I guarantee you they're going to sell a ton of those when they re-release it. Even though they may not improve the mold at all, it may be the exact same mold, but just because the kit's so hard to find, and a lot of us want an example of some Space 1999. Mine all got blown up with firecrackers when I was a kid. But you know, I want another one, and so I'll buy one. And think about the difference in the cost of repopping an already existing mold with some new packaging versus completely starting from scratch and making a brand new kit. You know, like the numbers don't add up, and they're going to go for that every time. You know.
No, it makes sense because, granted, I'm younger and I haven't been into Star Trek too long. I guess I guess I have to look outside the box as far as all the other model kits out there that haven't been around for years. You know,
and there's a reason the company's called Round 2.
Mm-hmm.
True. I guess I never thought.
Yeah. Second time around, buddy. But But
I never put two and two together.
You know, I don't want to say. I want to be clear. You know, I don't want to say anything bad about round two. I mean, I think that they've given us some phenomenal stuff. I mean, for me, the 350 refit is awesome, but for me, the release of the 350 scale TOS ship was a dream come true. Ever since I was, I don't know, probably 11 or 12 years old, I dreamed of having a model of the original Enterprise. That's what I call that is the Enterprise to me, really.
Yep.
In a huge scale like that, with all the lights and everything. And when I was a kid, I used to have the little models hanging from my ceiling and point my flashlight at them, you know, and say, "Oh man, I wish it was all lit up and everything was working like that." And when they came out with that was actually a miracle that they were able to, in the bad economy that we have and everything, to produce that kit. Which, you know, science fiction. We're all into science fiction models here, but let's face it, guys, that's a narrow, in the modeling industry, that's a narrow scope compared to like the cars and the military models that are out there. We're a small part of the modeling world, so for them to do something like that was great. But at the same time, you know, like I was saying a minute ago, if you've got this license, which, you know, that's why we don't see Revell marketing the Into Darkness Enterprise, and that's why they can't sell it in the States, because round two has the key, the gold key. Nobody can do anything Star Trek except them. And if they've decided to back off on all that, if I was the owner of the license, knowing what that franchise means and everything, I'd be pushing them to say, hey, I want product put out. You're going to have the license. I want to see stuff being produced. I want it to be active. But maybe they've got some plans that we just don't know about yet. We'll just have to see. But
yeah. Boy, remember, I was telling you something. Oops, sorry. I was telling you something earlier this year when Winterfest rolled around. They were showing the prototype for the 66 Batman kit, and right behind that was a tag, 1/6 scale Captain Kirk.
That's Mobius.
And that was Mobius models.
Right. See,
there was
never know.
And they had it listed as Q4 2013.
For American-made kits, I have been nothing but totally impressed with Mobius. As far as I'm concerned, for American-made model kits, or at least marketed American, Mobius kills everybody else. I mean, their stuff is really good quality, excellent instructions, and the subject matter of what they have available too is they're being really smart as far as what they're releasing and things like that. And like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing them get the Star Trek license if round two decides they're not going to do anything with it, or all they're going to do is those little cadet ships, you know. So
well, now round two must be the only U.S. company that holds license for Star Trek. Now, is that equally the same with Revell Germany? They're the only international company that has a license, or?
I don't know as far as outside the U.S., but I know inside the U.S. nobody can do anything Star Trek right now except round two, unless they've made some kind of an agreement where they're gonna, you know, like I said, you know, CBS wouldn't have to say, hey, okay, we're only going to let one company have the license. You know what I mean? If like I said, if round two decides they don't want to do too much in it, okay, they don't have to totally lose the license, because, you know, they're paying for that license. They have to pay for the right to use it.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, okay, reduce what they're paying for the license or whatever, but then let Mobius or somebody else get a piece of that license too, so they can, and let good old-fashioned competition get going and see, you know, who puts out the best kits and the kits that we want. I mean, you don't have to look around very hard in a lot of the modeling communities. They'll tell you we want a 350 scale Reliant, we want a 350 Katinga or original series battle cruiser,
yep,
or Romulan bird of prey. There's certain kits out there that everybody kind of knows those are the kits that we want, you know. So Wouldn't take rocket science to figure out what would be a big seller if they decided to do something like that.
A couple things, Boyd, not to argue with you, but I'm thinking like CBS could be just thinking, you know, here's the license and it's just money coming in for them, no matter what round two, excuse me, no matter what round two does with it. If they just pre-pop what's already out there, it's money for CBS. If they develop something, it's less money for round two because they've got those extra costs, you know, for development. So what, you know,
But what I'm meaning to say, Dewitt, is that if you're giving somebody the license, that you're saying, okay, well, you guys are sort of backing off on your Star Trek stuff, where maybe somebody else would come out with a whole bunch of kits, or like in a lot more volume too, where they can be sold.
Yeah.
And you get a percentage of every one of those sales. You see what I mean? Like, every I don't know what arrangement they have, but
the other thing too is, like, we know that there's all these different ships in the Star Trek universe or the Star Wars, whichever sci-fi you want to watch, right? And if you go and look at sites like Federation Models or Starship Modeler, you have access to some of those other ships in the resin kit form, the garage kit market.
Oh, yeah. Small.
So, you know, some grandfather out buying looking for a birthday present for his grandson goes to the store, says, "Oh, Star Trek," buys the kit there. He's not going to know that there's, you know, a Steam Runner class and an Akira class and a Saber class and whatever, right? All the resin kits that the people who are really into them know about.
Right. Well, you know, there's been several cases where resin kit garage type people and other places, they've been shut down by CBS and Paramount. They've actually sued them and made them shut down. It's all about how they fly underneath of the radar. If you get out there and you start pushing your stuff too much, and you got the Star Trek name on it, and it's a specific design of a ship that's, you know, recognizable, and if they feel like it, they will shut you down.
Yeah.
I mean,
look at Anagram when they were putting out all those Star Wars kits.
They just don't have enough money to pay all the lawyers to shut down the hundreds of small-time operators. But believe me, they'd like to. They don't want any of those guys out there doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, you know. Like I said, who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us. And you know, I just thought that I would hope that they would have been a little bit farther along. And then some of these repops that they've done, they were a little disappointing. I mean, when you take the opportunity to bring back, like, say, the Katinga, and I remember when I did the review on that on my channel, I was one of the first guys to get the new kit and open it up and basically see it's, besides the color, it's the same kit from this one I've got here from 1979. I mean, why don't they fix a few of the little obvious problems that it had, or talk to the modelers out there and ask questions, you know, be active in the modeling forums and ask us what we want, because this market is for guys, it's not really like for kids anymore. It's mostly guys our age that are doing this, and we're all over the place on these forums and doing what we're doing right here on these Hangouts and things like that. We could tell them what we want, you know, I mean,
we want 5 months to do them.
Yeah, we'll pay the money for better quality. I don't mind paying a little bit more for better quality, and that's one of the reasons why I buy stuff from Ralph. I mean, there's guys out there doing what Ralph does for less money, but the quality's not there. And I want quality when I'm doing this stuff. I want something that's going to last, and it's the same thing with the model kits. I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more. If I have to save up, if it's a particular model I want, and I maybe can't afford it right now, I'll save up and get it later. You know, I mean, that's just, it's just more, it's turned into more of an adult hobby, although I encourage, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do is trying to encourage younger people to get back into this, but it's a lot of guys like us that are doing it now. It's a completely different market than it was in the 70s, where it was all geared for. That's why you don't even see. If you go into your local Kmart or your Walmart, there's not even any model kits in the aisles anymore in the kids' toy section. They just don't go for it anymore.
Well, one reason why I think the Enterprise D has been discontinued is because of the clear plastic. It drove up the cost a little bit, and it probably didn't sell as much as opposed to you release it in opaque form, lower that price a little bit, you may sell more. So I think you may see it coming back out down the road in opaque form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I guess my initial reaction when I first saw the clear Enterprise was, ew, I don't know about that. So maybe that first impression was negative percentage-wise than most people being familiar with a solid opaque styrene kit.
Well, let's face it, a lot of people, they don't like their models. Your average model builder out there isn't worried about lighting them. They just buy them and paint them nice and put them together. So the clear model has no advantage over the opaque if you're not going to light it. But I always thought the Enterprise D was a pretty good deal because you consider, for example, if you want to build the Reliant, you go and buy this good old Aztec decal sheet for it here.
Yep.
Think about how much that costs. That's like $30, right, for this decal sheet.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
So you're getting the Enterprise D, the model itself, which a model 1/1400 scale model that big usually is around a $30 model, right? So now you're getting a full 6-sheet decal set with that, with all the Aztec decals. So I didn't think at $50 that was a bad buy at all for the model. I didn't think it. I'm not sure it was, price that killed it. I think that maybe it was just, and I'm not even. We don't even know for sure if it was bad sales that's killing it. It's just another one of those decisions.
Hey Boyd, I got a question on that clear Enterprise because I have one here. A guy sent it to me to wire up electrically because he couldn't do it. You know what I noticed is it's very brittle.
Yeah, it can be.
Because the first one he sent to me right out of the box, I don't know if the shipping banged it around, the saucer section had a crack.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue with those. Now, Ralph, just to give you an example, they kind of got into this clear kick, and they released this DS9 in clear.
Oh, that's the Harvey's doing that.
Yeah, the one that Harvey's doing. But this is made out of ABS plastic and not styrene.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
It's much more flexible and.
Exactly.
So maybe. Let's hope that maybe with that clear Enterprise, that's what they're doing. Go back and remold that thing in ABS instead of what they molded it out of, and maybe that's why they're discontinuing the one. But I get a little bit worried about that because they're not releasing anything new, and it's all this old stuff. And when you don't see new development, that means that there's sort of maybe a money crunch thing going on or something.
Yeah.
And just from a business standpoint, it worries me a little bit. But like I said,
well, yeah, I think everybody was really excited, to see round 2 when they first advertised that they were going to put out an Into Darkness. Granted, I think it was even smaller than Revell's Into Darkness, but I think everybody was so happy, and then they just dropped the plans for that.
Well, part of the reason was for the 350 TOS. I mean.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, think about it. Would you rather have a 12500 Into Darkness Enterprise, or would you rather have the Grail kit, a 1/350th TOS Enterprise?
No question in my mind.
Well, okay, I hope I'm not gonna make any enemies here, but I would prefer the latter. Honestly.
Hey, boy,
you're one of those younger kids, Dave.
Boy,
well, I'm not.
You didn't grow up with the real Star Trek.
I
don't fault people with that at all. We've got a young fella that actually Ralph knows very well. Brandon, our little guy that's been building up. He's only 12. I think he recently turned 13. But
Yeah.
talking about one of the other really nice things that Ralph did for the modeling community, Brandon was, he's a young kid and he didn't have a lot of money, and Ralph actually had a couple of extra. Ralph used to have a model building service, and he had a couple of extra refit kits laying around, I guess, and he made our guy Brandon a really sweet deal on that, and hooked him up with the kit and hooked him up with some lighting, some of his lighting boards for that, and the kid is doing a great job building it. And but his thing is the Into Darkness Enterprise. His first Star Trek thing that he saw was the new movie.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you look at it from that standpoint and say, okay, that's Star Trek to him, so I can understand why a lot of these younger people don't. Hopefully when they get a little older, they'll give the original series and some of that a chance. But right now, he could care less. I mean, that new stuff is Star Trek to him. So.
Well, guys, I'm not that young. I'm going to be 40 next month, or next year.
You're more of a next generation guy or a Voyager guy, right? That's what you.
Yeah. Well, even when TNG first came out, I was not big into Star Trek. It's really odd. I had a coworker years ago who was big into Star Trek, and of course I was familiar with Star Trek, but I never followed it. I was at that time I was a big Star Wars fan. But then that kind of died off for me. I just lost interest, and then one of my
hiss. I was just saying, boo hiss. I don't like Star Wars.
I still like Star Wars, but so anyway, my coworker, he just was always talking about Star Trek this, Star Trek that, and then I started actually renting TNG. That was the first time I watched it from beginning to end, and ever since TNG, I was absolutely sold. And granted, it was already out. This was years later, but it was a lot of catching up between TNG, DS9, and Voyager and Enterprise. But yeah, I'm just kind of late in the game. And then I tried going back watching TOS, and I just cringe.
Yeah. Well, see, it took me a while. It took me a while to have TNG grow on me. I mean, when that announcement came out that they were going to bring back Star Trek, I said, great, the original crew. Well, then when they showed who was going to be the captain, I was like, this guy can't be the captain. I mean, come on, this whole thing, it's a joke. But I gave it a chance, and now I really appreciate the show. I can't say I like it as much as the original, but I definitely enjoy the show, and I've liked all the pretty much all the spin-offs that they've done since. And I enjoyed the 2 new movies too, as far as action movies go.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I don't think it's classic Trek like I think of it, but as a good action movie with some Star Trek references in it, I think it's okay. But
yeah, I agree 100% with the new films. I don't know how all of you other guys feel about. I'm really curious to hear what everyone's opinion is on the new films, because to me,
I just want them to do an original script.
Yes.
Well, it just does not feel like, regardless if it's TOS all the way up until 2009.
Yeah, I don't want another recycling of what, to me, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan is the best of the Star Trek movies, and to kind of, I don't want to say rip it off, but recycle a classic when you got. I remember seeing an interview of Gene Roddenberry from probably the 80s or something like that. And he said, don't you worry that doing these shows that you're going to run out of stories? And he said, the universe is limitless. How can we run out of stories?
Yeah.
That's the advice that I'd like to give to the writers of the new movies is don't regurgitate an old script. And Hollywood in general, I mean, they're having a hard time lately coming up with new material. We're getting all these remakes, and you can't remake a classic. It's usually 99% of the time a flop.
They should have never redone Khan, in my opinion.
No, I mean, nobody can play him like Ricardo Montalban did. He is Khan. I mean,
yeah. Does anybody kind of remember when the first trailer for Into Darkness came out? And you kind of saw Alice Eve. She kind of looked like Elizabeth DeHenner from the first pilot, and you kind of.
I thought they were going to do. Yep.
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell. Yeah.
70% of everybody felt like, ooh, they're going to redo the first pilot. And everybody was kind of accepting of that. Then we got hearing more about John Harrison. And a friend of mine who moved to Indiana, he nailed it right off the bat. He says, that ain't John Harrison, that's Khan. I'm going, what? They're saying it's John Harrison. No, it's Khan. Go back and look. And then a couple nights, Brandon had got a spoiler, and he said something about 72 torpedoes. And me and a friend that's due on SFMA, we looked at each other and said, it's Khan.
That's how many sleeper compartments they had on the original ship that they found them on or whatever. But
Oh, the number of that was a number of people. Yep, that they had.
Yeah, that they had in the sleeper chambers on that old ship they found or whatever. That was a dead giveaway. Yeah.
Yep.
So. I didn't like the fact they lied to us. They kept saying, "No, it ain't gonna be Khan. It ain't gonna be Khan."
Yeah.
For 3 years, they said, "Oh, we ain't gonna do Khan." No, they lied to us.
Well, guys, I was just looking at the time here. We're a good 2 hours in, so I think we're going to have to call this one a wrap. Anybody got anything final they want to throw out there, or any parting comments or anything?
Well, just
I was gonna hit the road. I got a long ride home.
Okay,
Good
well,
night, guys.
well, I sure appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, take care, guys.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming, everyone. We had a great time, and we'll see you next week.